Now available in paperback and Kindle, Stop Simping in Cyberspace. Learn how to avoid predatory females like Instagram models and e-girls in their virtual con games with Stop Simping in Cyberspace. Get your copy of Stop Simping in Cyberspace in paperback and Kindle today. A podcaster from Washington State was allegedly shot and murdered along with her husband by a cyber stalker. All video used in this video is under fair use of United States copyright law of 1976 and is used in conjunction with my commentary.
This morning, new details about a murder involving a podcast host and her husband found dead in their Washington State home.
They have the active hostage situation. The shooter is not detained.
Police say this man, 38-year-old Ramin Hodakaram Rezai, stalked Zori Sadeghi for months after listening to her podcast about gaining employment in the tech industry. The two communicated back and forth through a chat app. Then at some point, things started to take an eerie turn when he contacted her more than 100 times in a single day, according to authorities. Sadeghi writing, "These delusions make me fear for my life and the lives of my loved ones." ABC News has learned just a week before her death, Sadeghi filed a request for an order of protection against the suspect, citing a disturbing pattern of behavior. Police say the suspect, who was a long-haul truck driver, drove all the way from Texas to Washington State. At his next stop, the victim's house. According to police, he shot and killed podcaster Zori Sadeghi and her husband before appearing to take his own life. A neighbor says their security camera caught the commotion overnight.
It was blood-curdling to hear it. I'm not sure I should have gone back and listened to it or not.
Zori's mother was inside the house, but somehow managed to escape and call 911.
This is the absolute worst outcome, for a stalking case.
Authorities say they had a tough time trying to locate the suspect to serve that order of protection because he was a long-haul truck driver. Again, police say he drove from Texas to Washington State. DeMarco Morgan, ABC News, Los Angeles.
Watch breaking news on YouTube. Subscribe to ABC7 Chicago Eyewitness News.
Now, in this incident which took place in Redmond, Washington, 33-year-old Zora Serhegi and her husband Mohammed Nasseri were allegedly shot and murdered by 38-year-old truck driver Ramin Kodakermezi, who took his own life after murdering the couple. Now, it is alleged that Zora Serhegi, a podcaster, got involved with Ramin Kodakermezi, who was listening to her podcast talking about jobs in the tech industry by getting on social media. And as they got on social media and began to talk to each other on a social media site related to the podcast, that Zora Serhegi decided to go out here and meet Ramin Kodakermezi offline. And after meeting Ramin Kodakermezi offline and allegedly possibly going and inviting him into their home, this is where Ramin Kodakermezi started to go from being an online friend to becoming a cyber stalker. Now, the police are seeing the murder of Zora Serhegi and her husband Mohammed Nasseri as an isolated incident, but when I take a critical examination of the alleged murder of Zora Serhegi and her husband and the suicide of Ramin Kodakermezi, it fits the pattern and profile for cyber simps that I talk about in my book, Stop Simping in Cyberspace, and it also fits the pattern and profile for beta males that I talk about in my book, The Man Crisis. And after reading about the background of Ramin Kodakermezi, a divorced father of a child, it looks like to me that Ramin Kodakermezi was creating a world around Zora Serhegi in order to avoid dealing with the trauma of being divorced from his wife of 8 years and having to deal with the trauma of being away from his former family. Because when it comes down to many beta males do not have really good coping skills, and because many beta males don't have very good coping skills, many of these men cannot really deal with the realities as related to the hardships of life, and because they can't deal with the hardships as related to life, many of these men go out here and retreat to a place I call the secret world, and it's in that secret world where many of these men feel safe about expressing their natural masculinity. And I believe that when Raman Kodakarmezi was on the road, he was living in the secret world, and as he was living in the secret world, he had started listening to the podcast of Zora Serhegi, and he possibly liked the sound of her voice, he possibly liked the way that she looked, and became attracted to Zora Serhegi. And as he became attracted to Zora Serhegi, what happened was when he got on social media, he started to believe that he could form a covert contract with Zora Serhegi, where he could possibly go from being a friend and turn into her lover. And as Zora Serhegi decided to get more involved with Raman Kodakarmezi, what happened was this beta male was then believing that his covert contract with Zora Serhegi was possibly being fulfilled when she decided to break the boundary between them and decided to go from being an online friend to a real-life friend. Now, the word friend here is one that I really want viewers to think about, because a lot of times when it comes to beta males, they use the friendship as a covert contract to go out here and have a actual relationship, and they believe that if they go out here and they start out being the friend of a woman, that they can possibly turn this into a real relationship where they have the possibility of getting that woman to drop the skid mark thong, and they can put their carbon rod in the atomic waste reactor, and they can go out here and participate in some nuclear fusion and have sex. That is possibly what Raman Kodakarmezi was thinking. He was thinking that possibly if this woman was out here, she would have a chance to go out here and have sex with this woman, Zora Serhegi. Even though this woman possibly told him that she was married, this didn't deter this Raman Kodakarmezi, who had basically created a world around Zora Serhegi in a place I call the rose-colored reality. Now, with most cyber simps and beta males, they create a rose-colored reality, and in this world that looks like our world, everything is completely distorted. And this is what happened with Raman Kodakarmezi. He wound up distorting the relationship that Zora Serhegi had created with him on social media. And when she decided to break that boundary between them from the virtual space of cyberspace and enter into the real world, that is when Raman Kodakarmezi started to believe that his covert contracts with his woman, who was a part of his fantasies, was going to be fulfilled in the real world, and he was going to possibly be able to go from having a so-called friendship to having an intimate sexual relationship with this woman, Zora Serhegi. So this is what happens with many cyber simps, because many of these men, they come from a very dysfunctional background very early on, and because they come from a dysfunctional background and really do not understand how relationships with women work, what these men go out here and do is that they fixate on a woman who fits into their ideals as related to their fantasies, and as this woman is fitting into the ideals as related to their fantasies, what they do again is create that covert contract where they believe that if they go out here and form this social relationship, they will possibly be able to have the intimate sexual relationship that these men actually want to have. However, as this Raman Kodakarmezi was going out here and getting involved with Zora Serhegi, and he was seeing her even possibly with her husband, because he was thinking that things would change and that she would possibly see him as the better choice. Because as he was possibly visiting the home, he was possibly believing, oh, this woman is inviting me into her life, and as she's inviting me into her life, there's possibly a shot at me getting the draws. And this is where he started to escalate his behavior. And as he escalated his behavior, I believe he participated in the paradigm that I've seen many cyber simps participate in, starting to go out here and offer lots of gifts. And as he offered lots of gifts, this is where this man was possibly believing, oh, I've got a shot at this woman. And as he offered gifts, Zora Sahegi possibly declined the gifts, and this is where this man started to escalate his behavior, believing that if he did more of the same, it would lead to a possible change. But there was no possible change, because the definition of insanity is doing the exact same thing and expecting a different result. And this is where the Raman Kodakarmezi started to become obsessed, because with every time that Zora Sahegi said no, this is where he started escalating his behavior from giving out gifts to going out here and making phone calls. And as he made phone calls, he started to escalate his behavior to the point where he basically allegedly made over 100 calls in one day. And as he made these 100 calls in one day, this is where Zora Sahegi basically became creeped out, because with many of cyber simps and beta males, they don't understand the concept of boundaries, and because they don't understand the concept of boundaries, what these men do is they just believe, again, they participating in more of the same behavior will yield a different result, even though the other person is seeing their behavior as insane. These men will continue to escalate their behavior by going out here and buying more expensive gifts, going out here and making more phone calls, and when they don't get the response that they want, these men get caught up in their emotions, and as they get caught up in their emotions, they start going out here and believing that if they go out here and start participating in erratic behavior, this will get them the attention of the person that they're fixated on. And I want you to think about that word fixate, because these men, they're not interested in the woman as a person. No, they are fixated on their fantasy. And as they are fixated on their fantasy, they become obsessed with the ideal that they believe this person is, and they can't see who the real person is. And this is a real danger as related to dealing with cyber simps. Again, these are men who lived in a rose-colored reality where everything is completely distorted, and in a place where everything is completely distorted, what these men do is, again, they don't really see real people, and then what they don't understand is the person that they're fixated on. They're caught up in, again, the virtual person that they are online, and they're not caught up in the reality that they're just participating in extremely disturbing and criminal behavior. No, these men, what they do is they're caught up in the virtual persona that the person is online as. And I believe what happened here with Raman Kodakarmezi is, again, he was caught up in the fantasy of the podcaster Zora Sahegi. He was caught up in the pictures he saw of her, and he was caught up in the voice that he was listening to online. And as he was caught up in this fantasy of this virtual person that he saw online, this is what made him start to go out here and become fixated and obsessed. And as he became obsessed with the fantasy of what he thought that her podcast persona was, this is what led to him further escalating his behavior. And as he escalated his behavior, it became more and more disturbing, because when he saw that the gifts didn't work and he saw that the phone calls were not getting him the responses that he wanted, this is where I believe he wound up escalating his behavior to visiting the home of Zora Sahegi, which is where he started participating in the most troubling behavior. And as he participated in the most troubling behavior by chaining himself to a tree and then saying that he would burn himself on that tree alive, that's when Zora Sahegi, I believe, allegedly went from being creeped out to being freaked out at the fact that she was not dealing with a man who was wrapped too tight. Because when it comes, again, down to these beta males, they don't understand how things work as related to social and interpersonal relationships. And I believe this is possibly one of the reasons why his first wife wound up divorcing him, because this man's behavior became erratic and out of control, and the other wife wound up divorcing him because she looked at this man and saw him as a threat to her and her daughter. So this guy, basically, he was not a man who was all there, as I see, as related to his whole mindset, because beta males, again, they live in a rose-colored reality. They live in a world that isn't like our world. They live in a world that is, again, completely distorted. And in that world, they don't see people as people. No, they see people as part of their fantasies. And if they can't have their fantasies, what they do in reality is look to destroy the lives of everyone around them. And this is possibly what Raman Kodakarmezi wanted to do. He wanted to go out here and destroy the life of Zora Serhegi for having the audacity of being married to another man and being committed in that marriage to that other man, instead of getting involved with him, a truck driver from Texas. This is possibly what happened here. This man wanted to destroy her life because his world was destroyed, and as his fantasies were destroyed, he could not have his smooth world, and because he couldn't live in a world with no problems, no conflicts, and no obstacles as related to him being able to participate in his fantasies and his sexual fantasies revolving around Zora Serhegi, this is where he decided to go out and participate in planning the murder of Zora Serhegi. And as this man possibly went out here and planned this murder, he drove all the way from Texas to Redmond, Washington, to the $1.3 million home of Zora Serhegi, broke into her home, and as he broke into the home of Zora Serhegi, who was recovering from back surgery and was not able to be mobile to escape, what happened was this man wound up allegedly murdering Zora Serhegi, and then wound up murdering her husband, Mohammed Nasiri, and then after murdering both of them and getting his alleged revenge, what this man wanted to do was go out here and escape the criminal justice system by going and taking his own life, because he knew that he would be accountable for the criminal behavior that he participated in. Because when many beta males, what they do, because they are cowards and don't want to be held accountable for their criminal behavior, is these individuals, what they do is go out here and participate in committing the suicide, and as they commit suicide, what they look to do is avoid being arrested and prosecuted and convicted for the murders that they participate in, and the possibility of going to the penitentiary, where these men will be turned out by Bubba, Tiny, Roscoe, and Big Dave for Little Debbie snack cakes, ramen noodles, packets of Crystal Light, packets of Taster's Choice coffee, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle pies, Fritos chips, and other parts of commissary. And because these men know that they cannot make it inside of the penitentiary and fear getting turned out and traded by those big inmates, what they do is take their own life, because their world has been completely destroyed, and because they don't want to have to deal with the fact that their world has been completely destroyed. What happens is these individuals go out here and look to do harm to themselves. And again, this is what the cyber simp participates in as related to extreme behavior, because these men they don't know how to have relationships with people online. No, they don't know how to have relationships at all, as I see it. And what happens is these men go berserk and, again, take the lives of people and then take their own lives. And this whole story, as related to Zora Serhegi, basically shows me, again, a textbook example of a cyber simp. And it also shows me a pattern and profile, again, of beta males and their behavior. And this whole case, basically, as I was reading it, gave me pause, because I oftentimes myself run into a lot of my viewers online here in New York City, and it just makes me really anxious nowadays, because I don't know if I'm running into another Raman Kodakarmezi out here, or another person who is fixated like this, because recently I ran into a guy online, one of these passport bros, who was starting to stalk me online again after I had made that video back in August 2019. And this individual seems to get triggered every time I would make a video talking about passports. And this individual, again, his behavior fits that same pattern and profile. And this is, again, something that gives me pause, because it just makes me hesitate whenever I run into one of my viewers. Now, I know a lot of my viewers are good people and they aren't thinking like this. But again, it just gives me pause, because I've had my own encounters with cyber stalkers back in August 2019, when there were individuals out here who got upset because I made a video looking to refute the narrative of regarding black men and passports and going to travel to meet foreign women. And these men, once they got their smooth world shattered and their fantasy basically destroyed as related to my opinion regarding that subject, many of these individuals started escalating their behavior to cyber stalking me on social media, looking to go out here and harass me on social media. So I can understand the fear that Zora Sahegi had when she was out here dealing with this Raman Kodaker, and I could understand the danger that she felt in being just coming off of back surgery and then having to deal with not even being able to be mobile enough to defend herself. I mean, it's all scary, because a lot of these individuals who are online, some of them are just completely cracked. And these individuals go out here and believe that the virtual version of you is the real you. And they create imaginary relationships around the virtual version of you. And that is the scary part about dealing with these kinds of individuals, because many of them are completely detached from reality. And as they are detached from reality, they just create their own little world around a person, not understanding that human beings are autonomous. They have a right to their own life. And if you don't really agree with that person as related to the life that they're living, again, you can hit the X at the top of the tab of your browser and keep it moving. Unfortunately, with beta males, a lot of them have obsessive compulsive mindsets, and because they have obsessive compulsive mindsets, many of these men do not understand where the line is, and a lot of these men, it oftentimes takes things like restraining orders or severe beatings for them to understand where the line is, or a person has to be strapped up in order to let them know where the line is, because when it comes down to these individuals, again, they don't live in our world, and they don't like living in our world because our world is pain. And as they live in our world, what happens is these men don't want to deal with the pain of their own real life, so they hope to escape to the virtual world. And that's where it can make it dangerous for people like Zora Sahegi and her family, because in that whole incident, we saw the mother, I believe, of Mohammed Nasiri wind up having to escape this madman and call the police, but then having to come back and find possibly her daughter or his son, finding both of them dead. And again, that's a very traumatizing thing to happen to someone, all because a beta male cannot deal with real life and real life situations, and because these cyber simps cannot deal with real life situations. This is why these men become men in crisis, and these men in crisis are capable of participating in just the most evil acts, and that's what makes these men extremely dangerous to deal with. And this whole case basically shows me the danger of dealing with a beta male, because a beta male is a dangerous individual, because this man was in crisis for an extended period of time, and as he was in crisis for an extended period of time, he wound up taking the life of a woman who never even knew who he really was. Now, if you want to learn more about cyber simps and their extremely dangerous behavior and what leads to them participating in dangerous behavior, you can pick up my book, Stop Simping in Cyberspace, on Smashwords for free, and you can also find it at other online sellers like the iBookstore, Barnes & Noble, Google Play, and other online booksellers for free. And you can also get a paperback version of Stop Simpin' in cyberspace on Amazon.com, but it'll cost you. And you can also go out here and pick up my book, The Man Crisis, if you want to learn more about what leads to beta males going out here and forming these fixations and obsessions over people. And if you want to see me make more men's issues videos like this, you can donate to my Patreon, my PayPal, or my Cash App by clicking the links in the description box. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe. Now available in paperback and Kindle Unlimited, The Man Crisis. Learn why so many men are struggling to find their way in an increasingly gynocentric world in The Man Crisis. Get your copy of The Man Crisis in paperback and Kindle Unlimited today.